So the booklet with the Paradoxical Commandments was published in 1968. So what happened next?
Well, it was published actually March 15th, 1968, the Ides of March. I was being a very clever college student. Published by Harvard Student Agencies, which was a student-run publishing division at Harvard. It was there to provide jobs for students. It was later picked up by the National Association of Secondary School Principals. So between 1968 and 1972, we sold or distributed 25 or 30,000 copies around the United States, and that was really nice. I was happy about that. And then, I went on with my life. I extended my adolescence as long as possible and went to various universities, finally came back to Hawaii, married the love of my life. We finished school, we started our careers, we started a family. And 30 years went by and I literally didn't know what was happening to the Paradoxical Commandments. I mean, I really didn't know. But what I know now is that people were lifting them out of that little student council booklet and they were putting them up on their walls and on their refrigerator doors and putting them into speeches and books, and they began to travel until they traveled literally around the world and been used by millions of people. That happened and I really didn't know. When the books that I was writing about the Paradoxical Commandments, when they started coming out, I got help and set up my first Paradoxical Commandments website, and that was in 2002. And the web was still fairly new. It was new to me, and we were setting up a Paradoxical Commandments website. I thought, well, what if I went on a search engine and typed in Paradoxical Commandments? I wonder what would happen. And up came 30 or 40 websites. Which at that time I thought was a lot. And I was just amazed. It was on a website for Boy Scouts in Canada and the US, on a website for Cambodian free speech movement. It was on a website for, I think my favorite at the time was the English Cocker Spaniel Club of America. That just made me feel all warm inside. No offense to Border Collies or anybody else. It was on the website for different Rotary clubs, one in Malaysia, one in Hong Kong, one in Alabama. Nice combination there. And it just kind of blew me away, and I just stood up from my desk and walked outside and went, wow, I didn't know. I didn't know it was getting around. And then yesterday when I was thinking about meeting and talking about the commandments today, I went on a search engine and I just typed in the entire first Paradoxical Commandment. People are illogical, unreasonable, self-centered, love them anyway, and got 116,000 results.
My goodness.
So they probably have the Paradoxical Commandments because that's the whole first one. So I'm just totally amazed by that. It continues to amaze me every day. They've been used by a Catholic priest in Japan, by a family council in Texas, a homeless agency in Philadelphia, the Oklahoma Girls State Program. They were used by student leaders in South Africa. The president of Zimbabwe used them. They're on a website for Iranian news and culture. Carl Menninger read them during a speech at the United Nations. I mean, on and on it goes. Just amazes me, spread all over the world. And been used in many books, hundreds of books. And often they're very polite and they write to me and I give them permission and so on. That's how I find out about it. But I know they were in John Maxwell's book, Becoming a Person of Influence. They were in Wayne Dyer's book, There's a Spiritual Solution to Every Problem. They were in Reverend Schuler's book, Turning Hurts into Halos. They were in Stephen Covey's book, The Eighth Habit. They've just been all over. And I had nothing to do with that, actually. I mean, this was not the result of the incredible Kent Keith marketing plan. I just, published them, and the 20 or 30,000 copies of the Student Council booklet went out. People ask me, so, okay, if this wasn't the result of some incredibly wonderful marketing plan, why did they spread all over the world, especially before there was internet? And I don't know, honestly, but I have some ideas because I've talked to people and I've asked them. And I got 4 possible reasons that maybe in combination helped explain it. And the first is, I think they spread because they're about finding meaning, and people are hungry for meaning. People all over the world are hungry for meaning, and that's exactly what the Paradoxical Commandments address. Focus on the meaning. Secondly, I think that they're just fundamental, they're real basic. They cut across different ideologies or theologies or philosophies. I mean, these are things that human beings have in common. It's not about the stuff that divides us. It's about the things we have in common. I think that's one reason that they've spread. I know they've been used by people of all the world's major faiths and many different philosophies and so on. I think a third reason they've spread is that they're short. You know, they're 149 words. That's not too hard to write it down and, you know, share it with somebody. You know, people use it as a checklist because it's short and easy. Finally, I think they spread because they're not issues or questions. They are commandments. They don't say, oh, please think about the possibility of maybe doing something. They say, no, do it. No excuses. Do it anyway. So I think those are the reasons that the Paradoxical Commandments have spread around the world, much to my surprise.
There are a lot of people who think Mother Teresa wrote the Paradoxical Commandments because she had a copy on the wall of her children's home in Calcutta. How did you learn about that?
Well, first of all, let me offer my condolences to all those who are really disappointed that Mother Teresa did not write the Paradoxical Commandments. I'm really sorry. It actually was a 19-year-old college student. It happened to be me. But yeah, I learned about it in a pretty unusual way. This was in September 1997, and I was at Rotary Club of Honolulu. And, you know, like many service clubs, the meeting will begin with a poem or a prayer or a thought for the day. So my fellow Rotarian went to the podium and said he, you know, wanted to recognize Mother Teresa, who'd passed away a couple of weeks before, and in her honor, he wanted to read a poem that she'd written. So I bowed my head, you know, to listen thoughtfully to what he was going to share. And what he read was 8 of the original 10 Paradoxical Commandments, exactly as I'd written them. Well, I recognized them. You know, I think the hair sort of stood up on the back of my neck. I mean, I was like, whoa, I recognize them. I was not disruptive. I didn't suddenly go, you know, like that or anything. I just quietly listened. And then after the meeting, I went up to him and I said, you know that piece that you read? And he said, isn't it wonderful? And I said, actually, I wrote it. Now, he was a Rotarian and obviously a courteous, kind person, so he didn't say anything. He did give me a look. I don't know what that look meant to him. To me, it meant, you poor delusional megalomaniac, claiming to have written something by Mother Teresa. How dare you? So I said, you know, where did you find it? He said it wasn't a book about Mother Teresa. I said, do you know it was the title of the book? No, I didn't know the title of the book. So the next night I went to a bookstore and to look for it, and of course there's this shelf, all these books by or about Mother Teresa, and I just started at the left and I worked my way through every book page by page. And I finally found it. It was the last page before the appendix in a book called Mother Teresa, A Simple Path, compiled by Lucinda Vardy. And it had been rearranged to look like a poem. I just made a list originally, but this was rearranged to look more like a poem, and it was retitled anyway, which made sense because each commandment used the word anyway. And it didn't say Mother Teresa wrote it. It said, a sign on the wall at Shishu Bhavan, the children's home in Calcutta. So that's when I learned that Mother Teresa thought the Paradoxical Commandments were important enough to put up on the wall to look at every day while she and her colleagues ministered to their children. And that just really hit me. I mean, I wanted to laugh, I wanted to cry, I wanted to jump up and down. I realized if I made too much noise, I could get arrested, you know. But that really hit me. And I think for obvious reasons. One is I have a tremendous respect for Mother Teresa and how she lived her faith. Another reason is that, you know, we adopted our children from orphanages in Japan and Romania, and we've been in a lot of orphanages. And in one way, they're inspiring, but they're also heartbreaking places. And so the idea that it was Mother Teresa's wall in her orphanage just really, really meant a lot to me. And I took that as a pretty big message. So that's when I started speaking and writing about the Paradoxical Commandments again after 30 years had passed.